Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting dated the 11th of December 2024. Do we have any apologies?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any urgent business? Okay. Do we have any declarations of interest? Okay. Public questions, we've not received any, I believe. Okay. So we move on swiftly to the minutes of the previous meeting. I don't know if members have had a chance to review.
Yeah.
Are we all in agreement?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we move on swiftly to the first on this evening's agenda. It is a change, it is 3A Underwood Way, Shaw. Application FUL 353462/24, and it's a change of use from residential class 3 to residential children's home class 2. So obviously, if you'd like to talk us through that, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So the application is for a change of use from a dwelling house use class C3 to a children's care home use class C2. The proposal does not include any significant external alteration to the property, and the facilities to provide for up to 3 children with up to 3 carers working on a rota basis. The application has been brought to committee because of the level of public interest it has generated. So on the screen there is the location of the site, number 3A Underwood Way in Shaw. That's the site edged in red. It includes proximity to the junction with Hillside Avenue, and as seen on the plan there, it's within a predominantly residential area. Oops. So that's the layout of the site as proposed. It indicates that the development would include the provision of up to 3 parking spaces. So the next screen there shows the proposed floor layouts. On the ground floor, there will be no internal alterations. One of the rooms will be used as an office. It's currently used as a study. And then on the upper floor, one of the bedrooms will be used as the restroom for the carers that will be on site. So those are the elevation plans, showing no external alterations to the building. And that's the application property, just that image on the screen there. So in terms of the material planning considerations relating to the proposal, we've got the first one being the principle of the development. Having regard to the nature and the scale of the proposal, officers are of the opinion that the proposal will not lead to a significant material alteration in the operation of the building. The position of officers has been confirmed by relevant case laws, where judges have come to the conclusion that a change of use from a dwelling to a small residential care home for children would not lead to a material change in the use of the building and would therefore normally not require planning permission. So on the basis of this, officers are of the opinion that the proposal is acceptable in principle. Next is the impact on the character of the area. As mentioned earlier, there will be no external alteration to the building, and the use will be similar to a large extent to the current use. So based on the use proposed and the fact that there will be no external alteration to the building, it's considered that there will be very minimal impact on the character of the area. Then in terms of impact on neighbors' amenity, because there will be no external alteration, there will be no additional overlooking or overbearing impact. So the only amenity issue that could arise will be noise, but based on the scale of the development, it's considered that the potential noise impact will not be significantly different from what a normal dwelling could generate. And therefore, we are of the opinion that the impact on neighbors' amenity would not be significant. Then highway, again, based on the scale of the development, it's considered that there will be no severe highway impacts. The scheme has been reviewed by the council's highway officer, who's come to the conclusion that the potential highway impacts will not be severe enough to recommend a refusal. So on the basis of that, officers are of the opinion that the highway impacts will not be so severe as to recommend a refusal. So consultative comments received. Environmental health, they have no objection to the proposal. Highway Authority, no objection to the proposal. Oldham Community Safety Services, no objection. Based on the foregoing, officer recommendation is that the application be approved subject to conditions set out in the committee report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just before I hand over to the floor, I believe all members of the committee were issued with some additional documents, including the planning officers. Have they been reviewed?
Yes, Chairman. So the additional documents have all been reviewed, and the recommendation remains that the application be approved because there are no new issues raised in the new submissions that have not been considered in the previous assessment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any questions for the officer? Councillor Hartness?
Yes, sorry, I just want to go on the highway. So obviously there's no, it looks like there's not going to be any additional parking provided. And I appreciate you said that there's on-street parking available. I'm just looking at that road, and it looks like there's just one footpath on one side. And it looks, compared with, I mean, I don't know that particular road, I do know Hillside Avenue, which is a normal-sized road. Looking at the diagram, it looks as if that road is very thin. So as a result of that, would that, you know, so in terms of how would parking work on that, have we got any, because obviously this application would see an increase in the number of cars needed and compared to its existing use, wouldn't it? So yeah, so I just wondered if we could have any comment on that.
I'll take this one, given that our Harris officer couldn't be here this evening. So obviously, as Abiola set out, the Harris officer has reviewed the proposals and has made no objection to the proposals. And that's ultimately because what we're looking at is we have to compare what is there now, what it has permission for now, and the use of that to what will, how the new proposal would be used. And there is, the bottom line is there is not expected to be any significantly increase in terms of the way that property could be used compared to a normal dwelling. A family house like this could have 3 cars, could have more than 3 cars. There'd be visitors coming and going to a normal house just in the same way there would be to a children's home. So from that point of view, again, it's always got to come back to we're comparing what is there now and how that could be used to what the proposal proposes and how that would be used.
Thank you, Peter. Just one from me, because I am a local resident. I'm aware that the nearby school, I think it's called Buckstones, has had a safe school scheme put in place which restricts parking, and it's seconds from this property. And I think we can all sort of gauge that safe school schemes are fine, but they just push the problem along a few streets. So, has that been considered or is it in terms of this? Obviously, the additional parking that is obviously on top of this application.
So yes, the highways officer is aware of that. We call it a school street, right, and aware of those proposals.
Oh yes, that's corrected. Thank you.
Obviously the idea of a school street is we're encouraging parents and children to walk or cycle to school, and we're trying to make it safer for that. So it's not necessarily about simply pushing the parking issue out and what have you. So from the point of view of the impact that school street has had, it's been monitored. There's been no significant change in terms of the impact on the surrounding streets. And so, yeah, it's been considered as part of this application.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chair. School streets, I can't even see that in the report. So why has it not been mentioned in the report?
Thank you, Councillor Williamson.
As I say, the highways officer has considered the proposal and considered there's no additional impact because of that school street. So it may not be referred to in the report, but that's because there is no concern around it.
Surely it should be referenced, no?
Obviously, that's a fair assessment, and we can take that on board. Obviously, it has been raised this evening, so members are aware of it. Members can consider it in the decision. But the reality is, as I say, that the highways officer is aware of it, has considered that in her assessment, and there's no concern around the fact there is a school street nearby.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Williamson?
I've got to come back on that. Yeah, again, why are we having papers that don't have all the information in it? It should have it in it. If we're trying to make an informed decision, how can we make an informed decision when you're not telling us that there is a school safety scheme, whatever you call it, and that from that cars will be displaced because they can't park outside the school and drop children off like that? What they have to do is they'll be parking right up the top. I know that area, and grandparents from Crompton who have got kids at Buckstones have commented to me about how much this will affect them, because they know that cars will be parking along the routes that they may have to walk to their kids, their children's homes where their grandkids live.
Thank you. Would you like to respond, Peter?
So ultimately, again, we're looking at the proposal before us, not not assessing the pros and cons of the school street. So I hear what you're saying, Councillor Williams. I understand that. I've accepted that. What I'm saying is the reason it's not in the report is because it's not considered to be an impact because of the school street. So the school street doesn't necessarily simply displace cars further away. I say the idea is for people to walk and cycle instead. So Crompton House School, well, this is about Buckstones Primary School. I think I need to be really clear. We're not talking about Crompton House School.
I'm just giving you an example.
Yes, but the point is there any evidence, is there any submissions that the school street at Buckstones Primary School is causing an issue like that? And the point is, no.
I think, Peter, I think Councillor Williams is making a connection between the movement of traffic now that the Safe School is in place into this area, and I think that is a reasonable connection in my view. I know what the principle behind Safe School schemes, but in reality, people in the 4x4s just park as close to it as possible. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Peter, Councillor Davis.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Okay, so this school scheme that people are describing, do people park on this street here when in the mornings when the kids are at school? Does it affect that street now? So how many cars are parked on there in the day for like an hour or half an hour, whatever it is? Does anybody have that answer?
I think the objector will be able to clarify that, Peter. Councillor Hobin.
Yeah, I don't understand this issue with this Safe School Street, because we're dealing with the house, and we've already been told by the officer the number of cars that can be parked outside the house, and Peter said it could be a family home with 3, 4, 5, 6. So I don't understand the relevance of this school safe streets, because the issue of the parking with the house is to do with the issue of the parking of the house and not with the street. So I think this is something that's been thrown in for no reason. I don't understand the point of that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holborn. Do we have any other comment, Councillor Charters?
Yeah, just wanted to highlight. Just had a look at the school street scheme for Buckstones. It only covers Delamere Avenue, so there is a significant amount of road between the school street and the property in question. So I think we are focusing on an issue here that, while I understand why people are concerned about it, going off the highway comments, I think this is something that is just being brought in just as an extra thing rather than a concern that will have material difference on this case. So just wanted to make the committee aware that it's a fairly significant distance between the two.
Thank you for that. I mean, coming back as a resident in the area, I wouldn't say it was a significant distance. I'd say it was in the immediate vicinity. But I'd take your point, Councillor Holman.
Yeah, we seem to be on this point for a while now, and as I say, I don't understand the logic of discussing this part of it, because in my head, you're almost saying now to every other household on that street, you can't have any more cars on the street. It's irrelevant to the issue as far as I'm concerned. You can't tell that whole estate that they can't have any more cars outside the house because of this safe school things, and that's what you're trying to do now. You're trying to say to that whoever's got that house, you can't have any more cars. So if you're not going to do it to the rest of the estate, you can't just pin it on that house.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holborn. I've been advised we have gone astray from the mandate before us. Do we have any questions for the planning officer? No, okay. So I'd like to call before us the objector, Katie Nicholson. Katie, if you'd like to come forward. No, that's fine. Can we get this gentleman a chair, please? If someone would like to give up the chair. I wouldn't want him hovering over you. Is he your husband? Yeah. Right, I'm sure he hovers over you at home, so I wouldn't want him to the way around. That's fine. Okay, so Katie, just relax. Take your time. There's a little button that says on the microphone. You press that, and once you speak your first words, we give you 3 minutes. If you go over a few seconds, we won't cut you off that much. Okay? When you're ready. No. Well, that's the process. So if you speak what you prepared speech, and then the committee will have a chance to ask some questions of you. Thank you. When you're ready.
Sorry.
It's okay. Do you want to just pause for a
Give me
minute?
a second, yeah, I'll get
Yeah.
the result.
I don't want that included in the time. Okay. Do you want a glass of water or anything, Katie?
I'm all right. I brought a drink just in case.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. I am the lead resident and I'm directly affected by this proposal, and I've been asked by 103 objecting residents to represent them all this evening. A number of local residents have also attended, and it can be seen from the people present that there are a lot of retired people who live on Underwood Way, Hillside Avenue and the adjoining streets. There are other residents who can't be here today as they are the sole carers for their partners or vulnerable themselves and aren't able to go out on a dark evening. 3A Underwood Way is situated very close to the junction of Hillside Avenue. This junction is on a dangerous bend and is the only entry and exit point for over 60 houses within the estate. As Underwood Way is on a narrow road with pavement only on one side, any vehicles parked on the road or pavement cause a hazard to motorists and pedestrians. The dangerous nature of this junction can still be seen now following a recent accident where a car mounted the curb and crashed into the house directly opposite to number 3A, and that's not a one-off incident. That's happened 3 times in approximately a 12-month period. This is brought to your attention due to the planning application that states will be parking for 3 cars on the drive at 3A. This is not physically possible due to the size of the current driveway. Even if all 3 members of staff were forced to drive a Citroen C1 and have a master's degree in parking, it still wouldn't be possible. A quick look on Google Maps provides indisputable evidence of this. There is also evidence to suggest the proposed children's home will specifically require at least 5 vehicles, yet this is glossed over in the application. There is also no application made for planning permission to drop the curb to accommodate more vehicles on the driveway. It is submitted that the applicant has deliberately been dishonest in their application, as they know that the current parking provisions both on and off road are not sufficient for this proposal, and that this would cause severe impact on the highway network. Otherwise, over 100 local residents wouldn't be saying so. All the residents who live on Underwood Way know that one single car parked outside 3A can lead to chaos and accidents very easily. The application states that they want to integrate children into the local community. However, they clearly haven't done any research on the direct community this would affect. This is of mostly older and retired people with no small children. A lot of the older residents who are vulnerable themselves, meaning there will be nobody for the children put in this home to integrate with, unlike other children's homes in the Oldham area. The application is also at odds with the safe school zone around Buckstones Primary School, and that's before the 400 houses on Linney Lane are filled with families attending this school who will drive there. This application also brings a different element to the area. In this case, a business premises into an exclusive residential area. This will have a massive impact on the amenity of the local residents and existing area. 3A Underwood Way appears to be the second property this company have applied for planning permission for this year, yet we could find no previous experience of them caring for children in a home by this company. This fills us with concern, and having had other Oldham residents reach out to us, stating children's homes near them in Oldham had to be closed down due to the lack of experience from private providers, plus recent articles stating the government want to clamp down on greedy private providers of this nature, it causes us all a lot of concern. So we, the local residents, would respectfully ask that you reject the application and allow these vulnerable children the opportunity to live in a different address and location that is better suited to their needs and well-being.
Thank you, Katie. Are you okay to take some questions? I mean, my first point is obviously, I just want to ask how this application has impacted on you personally and mentally. And
well, I don't cry on a regular basis, just to put that out there. And I do present for a living, and I don't cry when I do that either. And my husband's actually had to go off sick, and he's had 7 weeks off sick with the stress and the concern of all this. And
what does your husband do, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm a police officer.
Okay.
So obviously we have concerns with every time he comes out the house and safeguarding as a result of that.
Okay. Councillor Oldham, would you like to?
Yeah, just a question. I don't know if it's for you. Thanks for your sitting there and telling us all that. This issue of 5 vehicles rather than 3, where does that come in?
So if you don't, I am in my 40s, perimenopause, so I have had to make extra notes in case I was asked questions. So do bear with. So the reason for that is we've obviously done some research, and the company have another property at 2 Oak Close in Chadderton, and on that application, which was approved for change of use, they actually stated they would need 3 to 5 vehicles and that parking is plentiful off-road at that address. However, none of this was mentioned for the Underwood Way because it's glaringly obvious that there isn't plentiful of off-road parking. And this is probably why we haven't got families on 1A to 11A of this nature. We're all just couples with 2 cars or 1 car. There is nobody with older children who would have cars, and that's probably why nobody like that has bought this house. So that's why we had a look at that. And when we've looked into the detail, it's the same type of children's home with the same amount of carers and the same amount of children in place. And they do actually state that the manager and social services would need to visit, and obviously the staff's change over as well, isn't there?
Councillor Hartness.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I understand there was another children's home quite recently around the corner, sort of had a planning application approved. But obviously this one has prompted a lot of public opposition. Is there a significant difference? Is it the parking which you would say is the main reason why this is different to that, or is there other things? Or
I think the difference for me is in Shaw, and obviously I've got ward councillors here who I hopefully would agree that we're not against having safe homes for children in the Shaw area. You know, this is a not in my backyard situation. The Buckstones Road application didn't draw as much concern to local residents. I think it got around about 10 objections in comparison to 103 for this one. It's a different type of location, a different type of house, and different type of residents who would be directly impacted. whereas ours is mostly retired, elderly, and a lot quieter area. So I think it's more to do with the location, the access, the amenity. Like I know you referred to the noise earlier. You know, that would have an impact on people. And it's the way it would change the outlook of the estate as well, whereas the one on Buckstones Road is a busy main road with a pub across the road and things like that. So I think I have to believe, with the population and having been the lead resident for this, 103 residents wouldn't go to the effort of going onto a portal and logging a comment, and a lot of people would agree they weren't very tech savvy as well, so they've had to come out of the comfort zone to make the effort to do so.
I think it's worth highlighting as well, we've had a number of, well I certainly have, which I've passed on, numerous emails of objection to this, obviously whether people who can understand or use the portal, whether they've been included in the figures I do not know, but I've had quite a lot which I've passed on. Do we have any? Councillor? Luke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The resident raised concerns about the suitability of this site to deliver care to children. I believe that those concerns are sincerely held, but just to clarify, is that something that we can consider in the determination of this planning application?
I would suggest not, in the sense of it is not for us to, as a planning authority, to consider how a property will be managed. That will be covered through other bodies that oversee these things. Ofsted would be involved, and possibly our own inter-council children's services where necessary. So from the point of view of what, as I said earlier, what we're really focusing in on today in this application is simply, is the change of use that's asked for making a significant difference to compared to how the property is used today as a residential property.
Sorry, Peter, you seemed a bit hesitant there. Are we clarified on that then, yeah?
I was just gathering my thoughts, that's all.
The ultimate professional, and I respect you for that. Councillor Charters?
Am I allowed to comment on that? Because you keep referring to how the house is used today. It's a lady who lives on her own with no vehicle. It's very different.
Yes. Sorry, I'll clarify how the house could be used under its current use as a dwelling. So it's a 4-bedroom dwelling with, I think, 3 reception rooms. 4 reception rooms, actually, if you include the conservatory. 5 with a breakfast room. So, you know, it could potentially accommodate a lot more than one person as it might do today.
Okay.
Councillor Charters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question for the resident in terms of the discussion a lot has been around parking, and obviously another committee member has made the comment that people can have guest round visitors and that would cause pressure on parking. So I'm just trying to get a bit of a vision on how often there are sort of parking issues in the area, you know, occasional nights where there's lots of cars there. I know outside my own house, for example, I struggle to park outside my own house at times. So just trying to get a picture of sort of the state of play around the area on a typical day.
I mean, that's difficult to say, because obviously it's different times of the day, different times of the night. One example I can give you is that Lisa Naves in my ward, councillor, actually visited me at the property, and she was parked on the on-road parking between 1A and 3A. And in that time, you could see that cars were struggling because she hadn't gone on the curb. Because if you go on the curb, you can't get wheelchairs, you can't get pushchairs down. So she parked legally on the road. Cars were then stopping because they couldn't get past to go back down, because it's like on the corner, it's next to the house on the corner. A delivery van came to deliver a parcel. He then had to park and pull up very unsafely in order to deliver the parcel to the property that she was parked near. And that was just one car outside number 3A. An example this week where somebody's had some work done and had workmen there at a couple of spots during this week. It just causes like backlog constantly, and emergency vehicles, we've got to consider them getting down, and if you do park on the footpath, that causes an obstruction. And with the idea of people walking to school, which in reality doesn't happen that much anymore. We do get some from lower part of the estate, like towards Jordan Avenue, who do try when the weather's dry to walk up that area. And I know that one little boy who goes to that primary school does sometimes need a wheelchair and does need to be able to, you know, have access on the footpath.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, did you wish to speak? Williamson?
Councillor Williamson would like to speak, please. Thank you.
Shoot.
Sorry about that. I know, going back to the safety scheme, or whatever it's called, it's not, like I said before, I just want to ask you that, considering some of the comments that have been made, what have you, I know you've just explained it really, but it must, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so at school times, dropping off, and when they come to collect them in the afternoon, what is it like around there for you? Because I would imagine it's quite bad.
Yeah. So just to point out, I know Councillor Charters mentioned that it only affects Delamere Avenue. At the moment, we're heading into phase 2 now of the, I keep calling it Safe School Scheme as well as School Street. Sorry, I don't have children, so I'm not familiar with these things. But we're going into phase 2 now, where there are going to be double yellow lines placed now onto other streets off Delamere, which means we already have Hillside Avenue from the entrance to Scar Lane right up. They're parked double-sided, both sides of the road, on and off the footpath. The bus terminal, if I had a job as a ticket man, I'd be there every day at 3 o'clock and coining it in, because they park on the footpath in the bus terminal. And then what happens is, when they can't get the spot that close by, the first turn off is us, so then they would take those spots outside 3A, 5A, 7A, 9A, because that's how many spots there are. There's 4 parking spots basically for off-road. And like I say, if they park on those, they're either blocking the pavement or they're on the road, and directly on the opposite side, they are bushes, which are the back of somebody's garden. There is no pavement at all. And as I've already mentioned, what you have to consider is, it's not like when I went to school and, you know, you walked whatever the weather. Now everybody's dropped off at school because people are on the way to other places. When 400 families move into Linney Lane, the 2 schools for that are going to be St George's and Buckstones. And no one's going to drag a 5-year-old up Scar Lane, come rain or shine. So they will drive, they will park, and they will go much further into Underwood Way, further into the other streets that are off. And when that happens, all I need is Royal Mail to try and come and do a delivery, or DPD, and they're literally blocking the entire entrance to Underwood Way. I'm amazed nobody's ever had an accident when there's been a delivery. But we know we've had 3 accidents where at that bend it's been dangerous, and they've gone through to the house directly facing, and the last one was the worst one, where they went directly into the property and had to be removed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Thank you, Katie. Thank you for your time. Are you okay? Yeah? If you'd like to return. Thank you. So I'd like to invite the applicant, Tony Maguire. Please come forward. Have you done this before, Tony?
No.
Okay, so it's as it is. You've got 3 minutes. Just before we kick off, I'd just like you to introduce yourself. Are you an agent, or are you?
So I am the homes manager for 2 Oak Close that we already have, and I will be the dual manager, so I will also.
So you're an employee of a company, right? Okay, right. Thank you. So your time starts when you press.
I just press the button and then when I speak.
And then you've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi. Obviously, I did introduce myself, so I'd give a little bit of background. I know people are concerned in regards to experience. I have 8 years' experience of managing residential small children's homes that focus on children with emotional needs. I've working with children from sort of 7 to 17, and we are hoping Underwood Way would be a property that we would cater for the younger end. I just feel like that's been quite a lot of concerns about behaviour and antisocial. I've read quite a lot of the kind of worries and concerns that people put across. 1%, NSPCC released some studies, and there is 1% of children with antisocial behaviour that are placed in residential care. That was only done in November this year. Do you know, and that is not, it is something that does happen, and we are aware of that, but that's not something that we're looking at. In regards to the parking, we would have 1 car for the property, would be for the use for the children. Public transport is in abundance locally, and there would be 3 staff. But those, I mean, I myself live in Milnrow. I probably will be using the public transport. Do you know, that is something that we are going to put across and hope that that works. I've read everybody's concerns, and I will be honest, I understand concerns, and we are looking for this home to cater for the younger end of the children. You know, we don't want to be in that kind of worry with the neighbours. You know, we understand that how that proceeds and how that worries, and we get everybody's kind of worries and concerns. We are regulated by Ofsted, which was an answer to an earlier question. We've consulted them and Oldham Children's Commissioning, who did advise on that kind of area when we did consult them and where we should look at opening the property. We actually we're just opening our first property this week. Actually opens this week, and we obviously have got that time length. You know, it's something we'll be doing the property up and kind of getting our first model working. So I think that's everything.
Thank you for that insight, and by your own admission, you understand this concerns with the local community, and it will have an impact on their environment. So you've just admitted it will have an impact on their environment. Okay, that's great. And in terms of experience, you are a relatively new company, we would say. So obviously there's no, like there were concerns, there's no history or in that respect, but you yourself have. I'm just more concerned about who's behind you.
Yeah, so there is a director of a company who has experience working with lots and array of children. She's done a lot of charity work. She has worked with vulnerable families, and then obviously they also have a lot of business experience elsewhere. But myself, I do have 8 years experience working in residential homes, 3-bed homes, exactly the same as this one would be, and managerial experience as well.
I'm not doubting your experience whatsoever, but obviously you are alluding to the fact this is a business.
Yes.
In that respect.
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Holborn?
Thanks, Chair. The same question that I asked the resident, really. This 5-car scenario, you seem to be very confident there's only 1 car at that property.
There'd be 1 car that the company would own, would be for the use of the children, and then you obviously do have 3 staff that come to the house during the day. Now, I will clarify that is 4 cars, that is correct, but some of those staff don't drive. We don't have a whole staff team of drivers. Do you know, we have around, we expect 6 of our 10 members of staff to have drivers. There would be 3 staff on shift all day, but till 10 o'clock in the evening, one of those staff would go home, and you would have 2 cars at the, obviously 2 staff at the property. Okay. But we don't expect every staff member to be a driver. You know, we promote public transport. Children need to learn independent living skills, just like they would in a normal family.
Councillor Hartness.
Thank you. Yeah. So back onto the parking. So obviously you said you've got 1 space for the children. We've talked about you've got 4 staff. You hope some of those staff are going to use public transport and get there by other means. But you're going to also have visitors to the site. Yep. You're also going to have other professionals who will go and visit and do things there and stuff. So you're going to have quite a lot of traffic of staff, of vehicles who are going to that particular property. So therefore, is there any reason why there wasn't any consideration for producing, as part of this application, some additional parking on that site?
Yep, so a young person that's in residential care has a statutory visit from their social worker every 6 weeks. That can take place at school, that can take place in the home, that can take place anywhere. You know, a lot of them come collect the child and take them out. That is the only statutory person that is required to see these young people. You know, they have IRO, they do have group meetings, which take place in school settings majority of the time. there won't be that many professionals that arrive at that home to see those young people. You know, they go to school Monday to Friday, professionals work, you know, in those times they come to schools, they will be coming to the home, that will be happening. You know, I won't deny that there will be the odd occasional visitor, but it's probably no different to a visitor at a family home. You know, my mum comes to my house 4 times a week. I won't be saying that each one of those young people will be having a visitor that many times. That won't be something that contact we don't recommend. I mean, it does take place in the home occasionally. We recommend that takes away out of the home. You have other young people in the home. You know, the actual visitor footfall would be no different to an actual normal family home.
Thank you. Councillor Hurley? Councillor Williamson?
Thank you. Just the transport issue. I think I've got a bit of an issue with that, because I just looked at the timetable and there's 1 bus an hour.
There's also a tram, isn't there, down the road? That's what I was referring to. Yeah, staff could drop them off.
So, you know, it's not as if the transport network around that area is that good. Sometimes the bus doesn't turn up as well. But anyway, we won't go there. But can I just ask you a question about your plan for the home itself? You mentioned about from what was it, 7 to about 17, and you were going to the lower end. But you said about the kids with mental health issues, and then you mentioned about their emotional well-being, and then you mentioned a report saying that only 1% have antisocial behaviour. Well, I don't think the residents were thinking along that line. They were just thinking about what's going to happen in that home. And perhaps because I haven't seen your business plan, I don't know who you are. I can't find out much about you guys. So for me, I'm struggling here. We've not even got halfway through probably some things on this application. So I'm really struggling here to understand how you can be so confident that there isn't going to be an impact. And even in the report, it states here that there will be no, where is it here? The use and associated activity, including comings and goings of care workers, would be unlikely to cause a greater level of disturbance or amenity harm. I would tend to disagree with that. Having represented a ward that had a children's home in it, where the police were called, and they have to be called, I am aware, every time a child goes missing from a home, a children's home, they have to be called. So it's not just that, is it? It's just that the police cars are turning up and stuff like that.
Sorry, you've asked me about 1,000 questions in one go. Can I answer a couple before you hit me with any more?
Can you please not interrupt? I'm asking you a question. You're telling me that you've told me a lot about the emotional well-being of these children, and I really want to understand what your plan is for that, because I can't see what your plan is.
So, sorry, just before you carry on, Tony. Do you understand the question, Councillor Williams?
There's a lot to answer.
Or would you like me to ask Councillor Williams yeah?
I think just to preempt this, I think the question you're asking, Councillor Williams, is not a planning question. It's you're asking about how the home will be managed, which is a matter for Ofsted. So I think it just comes back to the, I appreciate there's a lot of strong feeling about this proposal, but as a planning committee, we can only consider the planning matters.
Okay, we'll move on.
Chair, I'll echo the officer's points of view in terms of we're sort of going into irrelevant questions now, and you started it off, Chair. I'm sorry to say that.
Okay.
You started off by asking the applicant questions which were irrelevant to the planning committee.
I'm entitled to ask questions, whether
we're all entitled to ask questions.
Well, there we go then.
But we've got standards to observe as well, and there are some planning grounds that we should be asking questions on.
That's why Peter is here to lead us on the right path, which he has clearly done. Okay? Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Thank you, Tony. Thank you
No
for,
problem. Thank you very much.
for entering the ring.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we move on. We have 2 ward councillors who wish to speak on that, and I'd like to call Councillor Sykes first. No problem, councillor. You know the drill.
I'll try and be as brief as possible and
Thank
not
you.
repeat some stuff. But there's a couple of things been said that I just think we need to put the record right. I do think the school streets thing neighbouring this site is relevant. There have been some submissions expressing concerns about it, Mr Richards, because I can evidence them because they've been from me since day one. And the net effect of that scheme is it put more traffic and more kids in danger on Hillside Avenue. Fact. You don't believe me? Go and have a look at it every time. It's worked for Delamere Avenue, but what it has done is displace vehicles, which residents are rightly concerned about, onto Scar Lane, onto the junction of Scar Lane and Hillside Avenue, and onto Hillside Avenue, past its junction with Underwood Way, which is the concern for this site. We've touched elsewhere about public transport being, I had to write it down because I wondered if they're in the same place, in abundance, or if you read the document, excellent links. Now, I only wish it was, and some of us spent a long time getting what is only just adequate bus service we do have there, and we could do with improving it, but I wouldn't say they're good. I think the biggest thing I'd want to say is, I thought this was here because I and maybe Councillor Navesy requested it be determined by committee, not necessarily due to the level of public interest, but I'll stand by to be corrected by that. And the fact that you allowed it to come to committee, I think tells you it's different. And I'd use the analogy of the other one that officer approval's just been given to on Buxton's Road, which is quite different, and the amount of feeling here. So both myself, I didn't object to that one, but I have objected to this one for some of the reasons we've already heard about. So just very briefly, there's some covenants and things about the land, but that's not a planning issue, so we won't mention that, but there is some around that. In terms of your statutory consultees or whatever, you didn't mention the town council, which I am assuming did object to this.
Yes, they did, Councillor
Sykes.
Sykes.
Informed, but it wasn't reported through you, Chair, and I thought you might have pulled that, because I do think it's important what they think. So, for me, it is about traffic and highways. There's lots of other things. So it's fundamentally dishonest in the application to show 3 cars on there. You know, you couldn't get 3 of Mr Bean's Mini on there, let alone the 3 cars it shows, and the drop curb. Anybody who knows the street, because the vegetation on the other side is square up to where there isn't a curb, any car parks not on the pavement, it causes problems for any other vehicles, and there's a significant number of properties past this that need to use Underwood Way to access Beckgrove, Burnside and Old Brook Close and the rest of Underwood Way. So that's it, and I think that's clearly one thing in terms of the site. There's no pavement on that side of the road, and what the net effect is, and it is the issue around the school, it is a car nose round there at school drop-off, but particularly at school pick-up time, as anybody who is mad enough to try and use Hillside Avenue around that time. And the reason I know that is I use this area. I'm not a far-off resident, like Councillor Hinds, and you can see it for yourself. There has been a recent accident, which is a repeat of an accident, so that we have got an issue with speeding traffic and volume of traffic on Hillside Avenue. And I think that is actually recognised by highways. It's a shame we haven't got a highways officer here, where we are looking at trying to see or prioritise or see if a scheme at long last will be provided to try and do something about reducing traffic speeds on Hillside Avenue. But that's not about this application. So I think what the public who've asked me to come and speak here would want to know is they're not NIMBYs, because there hasn't been the level of objection and criticism of the recently granted scheme on Buxton's Road, and there certainly wasn't from me, but I do think this is different. I think there's enough questions about this, and I'll finish on this, in order to be sufficient for it to be refused, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Sykes. Do we have any questions for Councillor Sykes? Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been a few different accounts now raised about the parking provision. So in the original officer report, it was stated quite clearly that there was space for 3 cars, but both yourself, Councillor Sykes, and the resident objector before you made reference to a maximum of two cars only. I think it's helpful when we're determining applications as committee members that we at least have an agreed set of facts on which to make decisions, even if not an agreed set of opinions between applicants and objectors. So can we, whether the clarity would come from yourself or from the officers, can we at least maybe agree a factual account of the parking provision at this particular property? Thank you.
Peter, would you like to respond? I'm happy for that to be considered going forward.
Can we come back to it
Of course, if you give me a nudge. Thank you, Councillor Sykes. Sorry, Councillor Davis, you wish to?
Yeah, thank you. I can't understand the significant traffic's traffic. It's bad everywhere, especially near a school. But I really can't understand. You know, could you explain that it's a 4-bedroom property? Somebody could buy this and they could have, how many cars could they have? You know, a couple of 3 or 4 adults living at the address. They could have 4 cars. So all these accidents and near misses have happened now. That it's now to do with this potential children's home. And by the way, we need children's homes in Oldham. What's your answers to all that? I just don't understand it, that the point you're making about traffic, because I don't think there's going to be any massive significance with this property being a care home and the amount of people that are going to be parking vehicles there, because that seems to be what this hinges on, how many vehicles are parked in the area.
Would you like to respond, Councillor Sykes?
Yeah, I'd just use the analogy of and if anybody can get 3 vehicles on that driveway as it currently is, you're better than I am, because it just can't be done. And I just use that, and that's what raises it for me. That and significant, excellent public transport links. It says in the document there's a number of queries in there that just aren't true. So what else in it isn't true? To answer your other question, this will impact. The traffic has already got significantly worse in that area since the school safety scheme. So it's safer for kids on Delamere Avenue, but I'm very clearly of the view that it's made it less safe for them on Hillside Avenue, to be honest, and it's not working that well on Delamere Avenue, as I inspected it myself, because there are a number of cars parked on it today. So I think that's one of the issues. It's whether you agree it or don't agree it, Councillor Davis. That's not for me to say, and I'm not going to say you're right and wrong. I'm just saying I've lived in that part of Shire all my life, and because, you know, and I'd urge this is a planning point beyond this, stop building roads that don't have pavements on both sides, and half of this conversation wouldn't be happening. But because there is no pavement on the other side of that road, you either park illegally, or if you park in the highway, you're causing an obstruction. And neither of which is ideal, and certainly with ordinary cars, with any other sort of vehicles, it just makes the road impassable.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. Is it a new question, Peter?
No, I just want to come back and make the point. All those points are significant. Whoever lives in that property, there could be 6 cars if somebody bought the property, a 4-bedroom property. We don't know. I could tell you how many my neighbours had. I won't, but I could. How many cars we have where we are, and it's a narrow street. It's the same everywhere with cars.
Thank you, Councillor Davis.
Yeah.
You can respond, please.
I mean, you could, you know, anything could happen, but that isn't. It's what we've got in front of us, and as you've already heard, the rest of that street, the whole of it, is occupied by either single people or couples, and there isn't the car problem. So you're right, there's other things could happen. Lots of things could happen. The sun could not rise tomorrow, but the application in front of us here will significantly increase the traffic in that area, making it less safe. As far as I'm concerned, that's a fact.
Yes, if you want to interject, Peter. Yeah.
Just for the committee's benefit, obviously, I understand what Councillor Sykes is saying, and that we can't, you know, the what ifs, if you like, but actually in planning terms, we do have to consider the what ifs of what we call fallback positions, how an existing use could be used. So I think just to clarify that, I understand where Councillor Sykes is coming from. I appreciate the sentiment, but from a planning point of view, we do have to consider the fact that this property, as is, could generate far more. Any of the properties on Underwood Way could generate far more traffic and parking.
Thank you, Peter. Any further? No. Thank you, Councillor Sykes. I'd like to call forward Councillor Lisa Navesy. So, Councillor, it's first time in the hockey, I believe. So, just press the red button and away you go. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So, I fully concur with what Councillor Sykes has stated. So, I won't waste time on repeating these concerns. Objections to this application is not about NIMBYism. As Shaw has passed such applications with little objections. In fact, on one very close to this site, Buckstones Road, was recently passed. The reasons, as spelled out by Councillor Sykes, are, in my view, reason enough for this application to be refused. Both myself and Councillor Sykes are not aligned politically, but we are solid in an agreement on this application. I am concerned, that the school's street scheme introduced in August 2024 to nearby Buckstone School has not been considered in the relation to this application, as this will undoubtedly push school-related parking to this area, causing further problems relating to traffic safety at the already busy access junction. Oh gosh, my voice is going. At Underwood Way. As committee members, I am aware you must consider opinions and advice from planning team. However, we as councillors must consider the feeling and views of residents regarding planning applications which affect them. This very committee has recently voted against the planning officer's advice in interest of residents both in Saddleworth and more recently Moorside. So a rejection by this committee on this application does not set a precedent, rather demonstrates the bond between elected members and their constituents. I therefore ask the committee to reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
For shaky voice.
It's okay. Thank you. Any questions for the councillor? No, thank you.
Can I just also add something?
You've still
well?
got some minutes.
I know there's been, I'm all right now, but I know there's been a few concerns about the parking and the cars and the street schemes, and I'm a grandma of 5 and 3 of my youngest grandchildren, I take them to a school close by to Underwood Way daily. And I fully understand how bad the parking is in that area. And they fight for parking spaces. And with this scheme, as it pushes up Scar Lane and onto, then you've got the bus terminus, and they're pushing further out, which the next junction is Underwood Way, and that's where people will park. Now, like the resident said, I have parked on there, and it is really, really dangerous. I mean, the delivery driver that came nearly went in the back of my car. So it is a concern, in my view, of the parking in that area.
Thank you, Councillor Navesy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, I didn't.
It doesn't matter. Okay, thanks.
Peter would like to make comment before we open debate.
Thank you, Chair. So, obviously, there's been a lot of discussion already, a lot of points raised. I feel I have to address some of those before we open into debate, to obviously make sure that we are, as a planning authority, dealing with the application properly and covering, addressing the appropriate issues that are planning related. So, first of all, I think as obviously, as a few people have mentioned, it feels like the concerns hinge around the highways impacts. I think there is also some concerns around perceived antisocial behaviour or fear of noise and that kind of thing. But ultimately, for all of these issues, what we have to focus on in this proposal is, would this proposal significantly impact those issues compared to the existing use? So it's not about, I've heard tonight concerns raised around the impact of the school street in the area. With my other hat on, covering transport, please, councillors who have spoken, please share that kind of information with me so we can take that on board in how we manage the school street. But that issue, which sounds like it, from what I've heard tonight, is already happening, that would be there under a C3 dwelling and under a C2 children's home. That's the same, and it's whether the change of use makes that significantly worse. And the same with anything in terms of noise or antisocial behaviour. As members of the committee will know, I've said it several times in about different applications, we all know that there is a potential always to get a nightmare neighbour in any situation. And so that risk or that concern or that fear of antisocial behaviour or of noise can happen with a C3 dwelling as well as a C2 children's home. But actually what we've heard tonight is actually if a C2 children's home is managed properly, that risk is minimised. In terms of the parking provision, so again, in terms of whether the existing drive can fit two or three vehicles, to a point is not relevant, because just looking at the picture on the screen there, as a house, as a children's home, either way, there is space in the front of that property to enlarge the drive and still be able to use the existing drop curb, and that can be done without planning permission. So there is things that could be done anyway and won't need that planning permission. So I think we have to, again, it's about really, in terms of the parking provision, it comes back to, would there be a significant impact in terms of the way this property is used from a parking point of view compared to how it could be used as a dwelling? Again, and I appreciate members of the committee will know this already, but a few things have been raised around these couple of points that I think I just need to clarify and make sure everyone's on the same page. The number of objections we have received is not a factor we can consider in a planning decision. It is about the planning merits of those comments and whether there is things that we have to be concerned about in terms of those comments. And likewise, while we can empathise and understand the concerns that have been raised and empathise with residents about their fears about what might come with this, the basis of our decision cannot be on those feelings. It has to be on the planning merits of the case. Finally, going back to the point of, we mentioned before about the idea of fallback positions and that kind of thing, and a few references have been made to the children's home on Buckstones Road that was granted what we call a certificate of lawfulness. So just to be, again, for everyone's and the committee's benefit, to clarify the difference, a certificate of lawfulness is not a planning application, and it is not consulted upon in the same way, because it is about a factual interpretation of the law. This proposal could have applied for a certificate of lawfulness rather than doing it through a planning application. And in that situation, it would not have been at this committee. It would not have come down to the...
Sorry, Peter, but they didn't, did they? So it's not relevant to this application, is it? In my view.
If you let me finish, Chair, it is relevant, because the bottom line is that is a fallback position. They could apply for a certificate of lawfulness, and we would have to interpret that as officers purely on the interpretation of the law planning law in that situation. So that is why, ultimately, I want to set all those things out, but that is why we have set out as officers, not unfeeling about people's concerns. We do understand that, but we have to base it on the planning law, on the planning policies, and the planning merits at play here. And so it is fundamentally about, as a committee, whether there is such a significant change in this change of use that it will cause that harm compared to the current dwelling.
Councillor Charters.
Thanks, Chair. Just picking up on that point that Peter just made around the lawfulness, I was just reading through the report again and noticed points 9.6, 9.7 talk about how the many cases such as proposed change of use from C3 to a C2 small children's home is not considered to require planning permission. So despite the fact that they've put an application in, I'm just wondering, are we hamstrung by law here in that because the law says it doesn't need planning permission, and as if it doesn't involve a material change of the building, are we sort of legally speaking thinking that we should pass this based on that interpretation of the law from the High Court?
So when a planning application is submitted, we are obliged to assess it and make a decision on it, unless it is withdrawn. So we have to make a decision on this application. In terms of what I'm trying to say about the fallback position, is that it is relevant from the point of view of there is case law that is saying this type of change of use does not have a material change in planning terms compared from a dwelling to a children's home. And we have to take that into account. Now, if the committee strongly feels there is evidence to say that this particular proposal would create a significant impact, obviously that is for that committee, this committee to decide. There has to be obviously robust planning reasons for that decision that we might have to defend at appeal. But ultimately, even if that is what is decided, the applicant would have every right to put in a certificate of lawfulness application anyway.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Chatners. Sorry, Councillor Davis. He covered it, okay. So we had Councillor Harkness, Councillor Williamson.
I just wanted to ask you, you said about the 103, it was 103, wasn't it, that objectors. So how many of those had did objections on relevant or real planning reasons, like you sort of intimated at?
Again, it's not about the number, it's about what they said. So I don't know.
Sorry, can I just clarify? Out of the 103, how many of them did you regard as having legitimate planning objections? That's what I'm asking the question to you, because you mentioned the 103.
I didn't mention the 103, but I just mentioned the number of objections. But the point is, I, without going through them all again and looking at them and counting it up, I can't answer that question, because the point is not about the number. It's about what objections have, or what concerns have been raised and whether they're relevant to planning. And the committee report outlines those relevant planning considerations that have been put forward and addresses them.
Peter, I've got a question for you. It's just I'm amazed I'm actually asking it so far in. So there's considerations that we consider in respect as members of this committee, but them that's more of a guidance, isn't it? It's not actually legislation, or it's we're guided into what we should consider as material concerns, and not as material consideration concerns. So in that respect, yes, we are advised and guided, but we are still free as individual councillors on this committee to give our vote as we see fit. Would that be a fair reflection?
You are able to obviously vote as you see fit based upon the planning merits of the case, because ultimately, as a planning authority, as a planning committee, your responsibility is to make a decision on this application based on the planning matters, the relevant planning matters only. Those matters, it's not simply a case of guidance, they have emerged. Your committee members will remember the training that we give to you all at the start of the year, and we have a table saying examples of what is not a material consideration, what it is a material consideration. There are examples, but they're all drawn from case law, where applications have been refused and they've been overturned at appeal or in a court setting, and that sets the precedent then for what is an appropriate planning matter and what is not.
But then again, just to clarity, the members on this committee, as demonstrated previously, do have the right and ability to vote against such guidance they receive. That's they're not breaking any legislative issues or.
I will let Alan come in on this. I think.
Yeah. Legal, Alan, welcome.
Chair, I mean, you are able to vote against the officer's recommendation, but it has to be on valid planning grounds. So, and that you need to substantiate those grounds with evidence. So, if you're talking about highway issues, which is what most of the debate seems to be about, it would have to be you'd have to be producing evidence to substantiate your view that this is so severe that it's going to have an impact, and that's why it should be refused.
Could that be so? Any evidence along the highways could be presented at appeal, perhaps.
Have to tie back to the use that's being made of this particular property, and it needs to be, because if there's an appeal, you have to justify why you've made that decision. So just saying that cars park there at certain times, the officer view is that exactly, and it'd have to be sufficient to be classified as of a severe impact on the highway network.
Councillor Williamson, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair, for letting me come in. We do need children's homes and in Oldham, and I am an advocate of that. I just think it needs to be in the right location, and some of the stuff that I've heard tonight and it's been really impactful, really, and from councillors as well as the resident and the applicant. But the thing is about this, it's about the location, not location, but the location of it and how it will impact. Because at the minute, we've got one car there and that's it. And then we've got movement all day, every day, for a number of cars, however many, and there's, I think, yet again, has been picked up by councillors down the table there, about some inconsistencies in information provided to us. Also, about I'm going to say safe schools, I don't care what it's called, but it's safe schools is in my head, it keeps coming up. But, having said all that, I am not going to sit on my hands tonight, and I'm minded that that I would consider rejecting this application and voting against it.
Would you like to submit a formal reason? I missed your hand. Sorry, if you would. Sorry, are you accusing me of something? And what are you accusing me of? No, I saw you gesture towards Councillor Davis. I don't know what that was. I'm sorry, but if you've got any concerns about me as okay. I mean, this is absolutely ludicrous. Right, so Councillor Davis, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd like to confirm that Councillor Akhtar did ask me could he speak, and I did mention it to you. Maybe it was a bit of a misunderstanding.
Right, okay. Would you like to speak, Councillor?
Definitely, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing me in. Just want some clarification from the officers in terms of the current driveway. How many cars could be accommodated on the current driveway, and if there is room to accommodate more, and how many more could be accommodated? Thank you.
obviously, I'm simply assessing it on the basis of what was on the screen before and the plan that I think Abiel was about to pull up. But I think it'd be reasonable to assume that you could get at least 3 cars with that, if some of the garden was removed. In the current driveway, can you pull the picture back up? So if this is the Google Street View, obviously too comfortably. I mean, I think if you trimmed the hedge back a bit, you could probably get a third one on. But either way, I say the point is not so much about how much could you accommodate. It's about whether the level of parking will be causing as Alan said earlier, a severe highway impact compared to the dwelling.
We could stipulate a condition saying that the driveway is expanded, can't we?
So I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that, simply because obviously it is we're not able to change the applicant's plans in that regard. I think so. You know, in terms of we have to determine the application on the plans before us, and at this point in time, while they are showing 3 cars on that other plan, they're not saying they are going to be changing the driveway in the plans that we've got to approve. So I'm a bit uncomfortable at a condition that would require a further change to the physical environment, even though that change wouldn't require planning permission, if you understand my meaning.
I do understand that, but I know in the past we have sort of placed conditions which were in the reports already when we're approving something.
Yeah, so on that basis, yeah, I think we could probably have a condition that requires a parking plan to be submitted at a later date to be discharged as a condition, if we as officers are content with that plan.
Councillor Holman.
Thanks, Chair. I think we've been here before on many occasions, haven't we? In the respect that as councillors on this committee, we do feel for the residents and we do want to fight for the residents. But in a semi-judicial committee that this is, we do have to look at the letter of the law. We do have to consider that. And as Peter said, we do have to look at the basis of the planning application and not the issues that concern the schools road or anything like that. And we've had this with HMOs that have come up before us, where people say about the traffic, if this doesn't go through as a care home, it could quite easily be bought, a 4-bedroom house, could be changed into an HMO. You could have 6, 7, 8 cars, and there's not a lot we can do about that. So on the basis of the application, even if it doesn't get changed into an HMO or into a care home, as has been said before, a 4-bedroom house could have 6 adults in it with a car each. We can't determine in the planning committee how many cars, if you buy that house, we can't say you can only ever have 2 cars at that house. That can't be packed, because otherwise we'd have to go down the rest of the estate and say to all the other property holders, this is how your house has got to stay now, because we're not allowing anybody else to have any cars on this street. So we're in a difficult place. While we want to do the right thing for the residents, for me, I can't see a material objection here, because the traffic issue has come up on so many things, and we know it's not a winner. And in this case, you talk about the driveway, you could, if I was doing it, and I'm not telling the people that are buying it, you could cut that bush down and easily get 4 cars on there. But the car issue is, it can't be, it's not a material issue for this. Am I right, Peter? It's not a material consideration for this planning application, because as I said, a family of 6 could move in with 6 cars. You couldn't legislate against that. An HMO could be put there. You can't legislate against that. I don't think we've got grounds correct me, Peter, if I'm wrong, with this parking issue, to turn it down on that single issue.
So obviously, given the officer recommendation, I agree that I don't believe we have the grounds to refuse this on that basis. Ultimately, it's a judgment about, as I say, whether the impacts of how parking will have to be handled at this property, if it's a children's home, would create a severe highway impact compared to if it was still used as a dwelling, which, as Councillor Hobin has said, 4-bedroom dwelling, 4 reception rooms, you could have a number of adults living at this property with a number of cars.
I think the other, which I would say was a consideration, is the level of traffic. Obviously, this will increase the current level of traffic. Obviously, certain visitors, and obviously the access and situation of the property. I mean, we're not calling like council. I'm not of a view with Councillor Hobin where it's carte blanche. You'd say to every household. I mean, that is just, you know, a subjective statement. But in this particular property that we're looking at in front of us, and its specific location, it's not about, nobody's saying about the validity of the need for children's homes, because obviously, as we've demonstrated, there's been quite a few recently. It's just, you know, from a safety point of view, and that includes the people who will be residents there, should this go ahead, and the number of accidents we've already seen there. Do we not have a duty of care as members of this committee to consider that, Peter?
So we're a planning committee, and this is not about the Highway Authority. We have had the Highways Authority's comments in terms of the officers not objecting to it. So ultimately, as I say, it is a question of, do the committee consider that the change of use and the change in the way the property would be used vehicular-wise would create that severe highway impact? Obviously, the officer, the House officer, feels that it would not and has not objected, and so I share that recommendation with the Highways officer.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at the report from the Highways officer. There's nothing. There doesn't appear to be anything about the accidents that happened there, which had been mentioned by, was it the objector? I think it was Councillor Sykes and perhaps Councillor Navesy. So I just wonder why that's not been included in it. Does it not have to be?
No, it doesn't have to be. So ultimately, it's similar to the School Street example you gave earlier. What we're considering is not the existing issues. It is, would there be a severe impact, additional impact, because of this proposal?
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. It's just merely a comment, and from what Councillor Shoaib had said as well, is that if we reject this application today, there's nothing stopping the applicants going for an appeal and winning this. We've seen this many times. We've been on panels for a very long time, and we've seen this many a times. I mean, that's my observation here. I don't think we've got material facts here. We've got, I completely, you know, agree with some of the concerns that some of the residents have. I've got 3 schools around our area, and we're in a very heavy residential, place where we live. But that's never stopped. We've got HMOs, we've got children's homes, but unfortunately, we've got to look at the material facts of our planning here, and not just objections that don't hold any weight. And I just want to go ahead and move this, and I think Councillor Williamson has already.
I'd just like to add to your comments. I concur with you in terms of the process that we're here and the guidance we have to adhere to. But I'm also mindful as a resident, as a councillor, as a member of this committee, you know, we still reserve the right to act in the interests of residents should we see fit. And if we determine to reject this application, that is what we're doing. We're rejecting it. Any other mechanism the applicant has to pursue, whether that be to try to get approval by other means, or we go to appeal, then we go to appeal. So the outcome of this, I believe, is we simply should be focusing on not will it go to appeal and what will happen, but what we've debated in the room tonight. Councillor Davis?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We're at the stage now. We need to get cracking and decide what we do. We've talked about this. I've not seen any reasons to reject this. We're desperate for children in care in Oldham, to get care in Oldham, in the borough. And I second the member there who recommended this for approval. So I'd like to second that, and I wish the care home the best, if it does go through, the best of luck, because we need as many spaces as we can get for our children in Oldham. And you know, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I'd just like to note that Councillor Williamson proposed first. Right, okay, fine. So had a proposal, so
we've listened to the concerns of the residents, and I feel for them. And I wanted to put a condition in that the condition is that they have to provide a car plan to extend the parking on the site.
Thanks, Chair. I agree to that as well, and thanks for suggesting it. By the way, it was a really good idea. It'll really help the residents. That.
And just for clarification, that is.
Yeah. So the acceptable, just the wording of the condition won't necessarily have to say extended, but I think what it'll have to say is we would need to see a parking plan that we would have to approve prior to occupation as a children's home.
Would that parking plan come back to council, back to committee?
No, it's a discharge of condition application, so it's delegated to officers.
Councillor Williamson? We've already had all right. So we've got a proposer and a seconder. So we'll take a vote on that. In favour? Let me do my George doors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 4. Against? 4. Okay, then the application is passed with condition attached. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I suggest that you and the Vice Chairman deal with this separately outside of committee?
I take that on board, thank you. Being called a dickhead in front of people isn't good, is it?
Mr. Chair, until the rooms are cleared, should we take a recess? Just because that's getting quite
Yeah, we
nasty.
can take a bit of a break. If you want to take a comfort break, that's fine. Thank you. Right, thank you. We're all back in position. I'd like to move on to item number 7. Part single story, part 2 story rear extension and single story side extension.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just do a brief introduction on item 7, but just to note, items 7 and 8, individual applications, but they're both householder applications, which committee don't normally see, because the majority are dealt with under delegation. For the reasons for these 2 applications coming to committee tonight is because the applicants are related to elected councillors. So for transparency reasons, in accordance with the Constitution, so that's the background. So taking them in turn, item 7 is, as has been mentioned already, it's 10 Estelle Avenue in Oldham, and the proposal is for a part single-storey, part 2-storey rear extension and single-storey side extension. So we've got a location plan here showing the site, and just noting the shaded area there be the footprint of the extension that's proposed. We've got some photographs taken from the rear that show the property just for some context, and the floor plans there. The one on the left is the ground floor plan. And obviously the one adjacent is the first floor plan with a lesser projection at the rear for the first floor extension, and elevations to show the proposal in a bit more detail, with the Juliet balconies proposed on the first floor rear elevation. So the application's been obviously assessed against our key policies in the local plan. We've had no objections to the application, and it's recommended for approval. Thank you.
I just want to move approval, Chair.
I could second that, please.
Yeah, I'll just quickly which this. This is 12 Parkfield in Chadderton, part single, part 2-storey rear extension. The applicant's related to Councillor Jabbar. Similar to the other application, there's no objections to the application for transparency reasons. Location plan showing the location. Photographs for context. And again, floor plans speak for themselves in terms of the layout of the property, and elevations again for the additional detail. So that's the introduction, Chair. Thank you.
Second that.
Finally, do we have any appeals update?
So we do have an appeals update. So agenda item 9 gives the update of all of those, including new appeals that we have received, and also appeal decisions that have been made, some allowed, some dismissed, some part allowed. As always, it's just for noting, there's no decision required, but if any members have any questions, happy to take them away and respond separately on any detail.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. I noticed on the appeals update, we've got one there from August 2023. Why is that taking so long?
Was this the first one, 149A? But yes, that is definitely ongoing, because I did check it, because it did appear as a bit of an anomaly. Ultimately, we're in the hands of the Planning Inspectorate. Yeah, it's not unusual for a delay that long, but yeah, it's with the Planning Inspectorate. When the appeal decision is received, we'll obviously report it in this manner at a future meeting. Yeah, but we'll note this actually and follow it up to chase it.
Okay, I'd like to thank Peter and his team and all members for attending. This meeting is now adjourned.